This is the regular meeting, August 10th of the Geneva School Board District 304. We're a moment late, so I'll go quickly. Bonnie, could you call the roll?
Here.
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 Here. Here.
Here.
Well, we're glad to have all of you with us. Thank you for attending. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag is in the corner. I shall lead. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There is an attendance sheet in the hallway if you'd like to register your attendance. Next is the approval of minutes. We have both the regular session for July 13th, executive session July 13th, and the retreat session. First of all, Bonnie, have you received any corrections or additions? Does anyone have any at this time? I think we can vote for all three of these at the same time. Is there?
Larry, could you separate them out for me, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, in that case, it'll be the regular session of July 13th and the executive session of July 13th first. Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next, the executive or the retreat session for July 20th, 2026.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Oh, yeah, Willard.
All on my right side.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda, recognition awards, presentations, and public hearings. As things would have it, we have a public hearing coming up. The agenda for the public hearing is President convenes the public meeting and welcomes those in attendance. You're all welcome, and I'm so convening. The President explains the statute regarding the public hearing and outlines the procedure. Essentially speaking, per statute, the board must have a public hearing to formally accept an e-learning plan. The e-learning plan is adopted on a multi-year cycle and designed for use in specific emergency scenarios when a regularly scheduled learning cannot be held, for example, snow days. The notice and public hearing and public inspection was posted in the Kane County Chronicle on July 16th, 2026. Dr. Bear, would you care to offer a summary of the plan?
Yeah, sorry. Dr. Pat Metzis is here to walk us through that as well. As you noted, our e-learning plan, this is explicitly about a plan that we're formally required to have in place if we as a district want to have the option of doing an e-learning day in place of some kind of emergency day. So I think that's the first thing to note. This isn't about general use of technology in our classrooms or our general tech policies that we talk about and review all the time. This is explicitly about a statutory requirement that we have a plan in place that's approved by the ROE if we want to have e-learning days on certain kind of emergency days. Again, as you said, like an extreme weather day is the example. So this requirement came into play some time ago, before the pandemic actually, and it was when there was maybe one district in the state that was kind of trying this out, right? And so now, obviously, when the pandemic came, every district, some of you remember us sitting in this room putting this plan together and presenting this to you quickly at that time so we could start to provide some e-learning at that time. Now, we're just maintaining it, and really for those very rare scenarios where we might have need to do an e-learning day. So I'll let George talk through this a little bit, and obviously we can talk and have questions and any of that stuff we want.
Thank you, Dr. Brett. I would say maintaining and refining, as we're constantly reflecting and adjusting and making adjustments as we enter these days where we have to implement an e-learning plan. The plan itself is for 3 years, so the last time we presented on this was actually 3 years ago. So the state requires us to resubmit the plan every 3 years. So this plan will essentially go through the 28-29 school year. And we briefly talked about this through the school code that allows districts such as us to adopt an e-learning plan, but has some very specific requirements that are to be included in the plan for approval. And these are the requirements here. And so I'll briefly touch on each of these and talk a little bit about how our district addresses these in the plan. So the first requirement is that the plan must include 5 clock hours worth of instruction, and our plan for each level, elementary, middle school, and high school, does allow for 5 clock hours worth of instruction. Essentially, our students do follow their typical school day, but remotely when we decide to implement an e-learning day. The plan also requires us to take a look at the technology that we have available to our students, that all students have access to this technology. And we do survey our students and our families and our teachers to take a look at what our students have available to them. As you know, we provide all of our students one-on-one devices for them to utilize at school and at home. The plan requires that we have a process in place to support students. That includes students that are struggling. So all of our teachers that work with students with special needs also has a plan to connect with those students, and those students to connect with those teachers to get the support that they need. The plan also requires that we monitor participation. So students attending class, we do take attendance, and we have a process in place to for students to submit work, and for a process and plan for teachers to look at that work and grade that work and get back to students. There are guidelines that we share with our families and with our teachers, so that's also included in the plan. Professional development. Years ago when we received our devices and we learned all about how to connect live with students and with teachers, there was some professional development needed, especially how to help a kindergarten student log on to Teams and turn off the microphone when they were learning, among any other things, how to access those assignments and the different activities. So that professional development is offered for not only for our students, but I know that our teachers take the time, especially at the start of the school year, before winter break, to teach students how to connect with them should any learning day take place. The plan also requires that we connect with different association and employee groups. So we did meet with the GEA last spring to review the plan. There's ongoing collaboration. I know every time, Dr. Barrett makes the very challenging decision to either have an emergency day or an e-learning day, that is almost always followed up with a conversation with our building principals and feedback from our teachers to see how did things go, where can we improve, what are some of the roadblocks we hit along the way, and how could we adjust that to make things better the next day, which that goes out to the evaluation plan. And follow also communication. This is something that is shared on our district website. We communicate this with our classroom teachers. I'll actually share in a little bit there's an image on our website that I'll share in a little bit, but taking advantage of an e-learning day offers many benefits. It doesn't mean that just because we see weather coming that it is automatically going to be in the e-learning day. There are so many variables that I know play into that decision. But having these available to us to use in the case of an emergency where we could continue learning is good. It allows for flexibility. It allows for a consistency in our schedule. We don't have to move. There are so many different things that go on towards the end of the school year. We don't have to reschedule graduation. We don't have to reschedule some of the activities that are taking place at the elementary and middle school. It ensures that we could continue instruction for that day and still maintain that same end day of the school year. This is a common graphic that we use. Our first priority always is to have in-person instruction. We know that having our students with us in the classroom is, by and far the best way to teach our students and connect with our students. But we do have plans for when we have some unexpected weather coming our way. We do have a late start option that we can utilize. If we find that we know ahead of time that the weather is coming, and we have the key important thing that we'd like to communicate to our teachers, if there is enough time for the teachers to plan ahead, that is when we will utilize an e-learning day. In other words, it is unlikely that at 4 o'clock in the morning, Dr. Barrett will call an e-learning day and surprise our students and families. We hope that this is something that we could call well in advance to prepare not only our teachers for this day, but our students as well.
Yeah,
And of course,
if I could jump in
Yep.
on that one, George, I think that's one thing. Again, these are some of the hardest decisions I have to make. When we have to make those tough calls, I am grateful for our internal team and also my external, team and partners out there who help make some of those calls. But I will say, I think we've gotten better at knowing if we can make that call early. And I think that our staff, I know, really appreciates that. And the feedback I've received is that, families want that call early. Like, if we're going to make that call, that we're going to do it, and we have the information, let's make it that day before so everybody kind of has time to plan. And so I think that's been, we've done a little better at that. And in those times where it's been, we've known bad weather was coming the day before, or we've known, the other thing that's happened more recently than I feel like it used to is the cold, some very extreme cold. And those are some of the days that are kind of more, they're almost better for learning, because it's not like a day of snow where your family is spending time digging out. Like, we got to all be in the house anyway and kind of can't go anywhere. So those have been days that some of the feedback I've received is, yes, those are definitely days that are better for calling that e-learning if we know it's coming. Again, it's not perfect, and there's no easy line to draw about when you might do that. But I think that with time to prepare is just a key variable I wanted to talk about a little bit, George. So thank you.
Dr. Barrett, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please.
So, I've been here 24 years and never seen it happen, but in the unlikely event you spoke of the cold, and a lot of the infrastructure in some of these places are underground here, but has there been a scenario where there's been an ice storm where there's a power outage? I know this predates the COVID, because I know it hasn't happened as far as I know. What contingency do you have for that?
Well, so I mean, I think that's where, you might remember, gosh, I'm old, it like blurs together. Not this past year, but the year before, we actually had 2 days. One day was an e-learning day, because the day before we knew we had time to plan. We were able to communicate that message early. One of the other days was a couple weeks later, if I remember, and bad ice kind of came out of nowhere, and I was out driving around. Matt was out driving around. Brian was out driving around, and just sliding wherever. And that was a day we had to call. We actually called an emergency day, called a snow day, because we didn't have time to, we said it's 5 a.m. we can't get our buses on the road. We don't want families out driving, but we didn't have time to give people that heads up on an e-learning. So in that case, we did an emergency day on that day and made that up later.
Yeah, I suppose I was asking if there's an absolute power outage because of ice. Has that happened?
Oh.
That's what I was saying with in this dependency we have now with electronics, and I don't think it's happened, but
Yeah, I don't think that
but that's the
wouldn't
worst
have
case
happened.
scenario.
Yeah, but it could. I mean, and you would, I mean, again, theoretically, if our power was out at our schools, our power would be out at home, and there's no e-learning day happening because nobody can do any e-learning anyway. So, emergency day most likely on that one.
There are so many variables to consider, and I know that, Dr. Barrett is out in his truck surveying the roads and talking to neighboring superintendents as well, and before making that decision. But we do get 5 e-learning days. That's the max that we get. Anything after that is a required emergency day.
Okay. Does anyone else on the board have any questions? Oh, you're not done yet. Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I think that was the end of it. So
Oh, okay.
we're just requesting that you review this and approve.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Any questions from the audience? This is your chance to speak. The hearing then is closed, and we'll be voting later in the meeting on this item. In my career,
Thanks,
I
George.
depended on weather quite a bit, and you guys have more faith in the weatherman than I did.
Hopefully, they're getting a little better.
And remarkably, after I just asked all of you if you'd like to speak, the next item on the agenda is public comments. Bonnie, did anyone request to speak this evening? Would anyone like to speak this evening? Well, you had your chance. Legislative updates, and I bet Jackie has something for us.
I just have a couple of things I wanted to share tonight. Starting with, it's now Public Act 104-0602. It was House Bill 4375. This has to do with transfers between funds that are allowable for our school districts. It is something that we have taken advantage of. Mr. Latham brought this one to my attention and said that it does help us as we are doing our budgeting and looking at our capital planning for the future. So that one is an important one that did get passed. Another one I wanted to mention was the House Bill 4137. The governor signed this one now, so it's also a public act. I don't have the number in front of me, but this one allows school districts to use existing budgeted funds, including transportation funds, to provide extended stays for unhoused students, should they need it. It does not provide extra money to the districts for this, but it does allow them to use budgeted funds to help out unhoused students. So that is now public act. And then the last one, we had a discussion, I think it was our last meeting, where I mentioned that we would receive potentially an increase in evidence-based funding because the General Assembly passed more money into that fund. We weren't sure how much money we would get as a Tier 4 school, and Dr. Barrett did share with us that the increase in funds for us is $4,750. So not a big increase for our district, again, being a Tier 4. If you want to see the actual formula and how they come up with the evidence-based funding for each district, it is available on the Illinois School Board, Illinois State Board of Education.
Yeah.
I think of the acronym and I could say it. That information is, you can find that on their website, how they get it. But I just wanted to kind of close the loop on that one because it was something we talked about. And then kind of aside from that, I was having a discussion with one of our local legislators, and I wanted to make you aware of it. He told me that they are having some talks at the General Assembly about school district funding specific to capital needs. They recognize that it is a need for many school districts in the state, and all of our buildings are coming to a certain age. So I mentioned it to Dr. Barrett, so we're just kind of thinking about how we might be able to engage our local elected officials and bring to the attention the needs of our community and what we might have. So stay tuned on that, how we'll be able to hopefully talk to them and maybe get some help, but really just share what we're going through, and a lot of school districts are as well in the area. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Jackie, for keeping us up to speed on something that's going to be pretty important, I suspect. Next is the superintendent's report. Dr. Barrett.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to share a few things with you tonight. Some relevant to some of what we just heard, actually. So first, just want to highlight what we have been talking about kind of all summer, and have been talking about a lot over the course of the last year or so. But you know, we had another big summer of capital projects that needed to be done, and we've got about a week left before school starts here, and it was a successful summer. I'm sure Larry and Paul might share a little bit about what we talked about in the facilities task force earlier today, but all projects that were taken on this summer are substantially complete. We feel like we're ready to go, and we're in a great shape to start the school year. As you guys know, we can talk a little bit we'll talk about this a little bit, but we had a significant amount of work that needed to be done, but you know, we had great project management. Our construction manager really helped oversee some of that, and Brian Peterson, our director of operations, and his team under Todd's guidance really just did a bang-up job. So all projects are completed, and pretty much everything was completed ahead of schedule. One small thing that we got to push to winter break, but it shouldn't impact anything for kids and staff. And then we're already planning for next year. You guys might see some preliminary bid documents for next summer as early as September. And if you'll remember, that was one of the things we really set as a goal and wanting to work on, was being very planful and being ahead of schedule, you know, thinking ahead so we could get that work done. And so I just want to say thanks to everybody involved for that. To that end, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we are funding these projects. I think this is a message that we want to be talking about here over the next couple months, and I know our communications task force has talked about this a little bit, and making sure that folks are aware of what we're trying to do and how we're doing it, because we are doing some significant capital work, and we know that there's a lot more significant capital work that's going to need to be done here over the you know, we saw the facility conditions assessment and kind of the draft 10-year plan and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of work to do, but we've been doing a lot of work as well. And so really, how have we been doing that? Really, it's kind of this three-part thing. First, you know, we had built up existing cash reserves. We had investments. We had saved some of that up because we had not been spending as much on capital for some time. And so that money was there for some of this work, and we've now been spending it and getting that work taken care of. Also, again, to my point about sound project management and our facility conditions assessment and our capital, our long-term planning, we really have been trying to take a forward-thinking and proactive approach so we can look ahead and be very planful. And then really, we're just trying to be, you know, good financial stewards and do this, use these reserves to responsibly fund these improvements. And I think that has worked well over the course of the last several years. We've got a lot of important work done using those reserves. But we also know that that can't last forever, right? And so we have been doing that, and our plan includes to do that a little bit more. But, you know, obviously we're spending those reserves down intentionally, and they won't be there forever. So I think it's just important to highlight that. To that end, I did want to follow up, and maybe I'm hopeful some of you may have some insights to share following our most recent board retreat, where we had the opportunity to do something new and unique and do a traveling retreat. So we could take a look at, and you guys could see firsthand some of those long-term capital needs that go beyond what we've been able to handle so far. You know, I hope to hear from you, but I think it was a valuable opportunity. We talked a little bit in the facilities task force today, would have been nice to even have a little more time to dig in detail to some of those things. And we can look for some ways in the future to do that. But I think it was good for us to get a first-hand look at some of the aging things that we know we're going to need to take on. So again, a lot of good work has been accomplished, but you know, some work lies ahead too. Much work lies ahead. I also want to highlight, you know, we've talked a lot about this transition of our student information system, and this has been a huge lift, transitioning to Synergy. And again, we talked about this in our technology task force has talked about this, our communications task force has talked a little bit about this, so maybe some board members will have some comments later. But that system is now live. We're fully living in that system here. A couple, you know, again, a week before school started, the parent access side has opened up, and not perfect, but we think has gone about as well as it could. You know, we all are familiar with the frustrations of when you log into your bank or for example, I went to a concert this weekend, and you know, you got that app and somebody's trying to share a ticket. You know, I mean, there's just all these kind of natural frustrations that happen when you're using some of these new tools, but we think by and large we've gotten this system up and running certainly well, and parents have gotten access to this. A lot of opportunities here for additional training for our faculty and staff once everybody returns. And then I think just one more important thing to note here publicly for everybody. There are a lot of features in this system, and we want to remind everybody of the mantra that, especially in this first year, know that there's going to be a long trajectory for feature rollout, right? Because we want to make sure that we're getting the basics down and we have the basics established before we start to roll out some of those other things. And I just share that because there are so many features, and there may be staff or families or folks who are like, oh, well, I know it, I heard it can do this. Why isn't that turned on? And we know, but we're gonna get there. We just want to do that in a thoughtful and you know, just want to do that in a thoughtful way. So we're trying to get everybody on board with the basics as we get this year started, and then we will have a kind of a long runway there for rolling out some features. So just really want to thank everybody internally for their effort in getting us to where we are and where we're going to need to be. There's going to be a lot of work yet ahead, and thank our community for the effort and patience as we're doing this. You know, there's a reason we haven't done this in 20-some years, because it's a huge lift. It's a huge, huge lift, and it's something that touches everything and everybody. So just want to really thanks to everyone involved for the effort and patience.
Dr. Barrett, do we
yes.
know when the student access is going to open to parent view, or do they have access the same way that we have? Is it called something different?
There is something called Student View.
Student view. Okay, I assumed, but I never knew. Okay.
But candidly, I don't know if I have an answer to that.
Okay.
Maybe George might know.
No, I don't. I know that it's coming, but as Dr. Barrett said, you know, one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to focus on the most important parts of this information system.
Yeah. But we can come back and
Probably as we get into the school year,
Yeah.
when kids are in buildings, it might be a little bit easier.
yeah. I think one of the big lifts as kind of a the attendance thing is going to be pretty different for folks, and that'll be a thing that'll have kind of a long runway, as we'll maybe be living in kind of two different practices for a while, because the historical practice that we've always had, obviously people will still be accustomed to that, and then as we turn on some of those features that we think parents will really like ultimately, but again, that'll need a lot of reinforcement in time, I think. And then last, just a little foreshadowing for our next meeting. Just want to highlight our goals a little bit, and start talking about, you know, what are our next steps with our strategic plan, and have some opportunity for discussion and thoughts and feedback from everybody, and looking ahead to our, it says fall retreat, but I think technically winter. but looking ahead to that for some more opportunity for conversation about this. But at our next meeting, we'll have an opportunity for some goal discussion, and just wanted to foreshadow that a little bit. Last, just really excited about the start of the school year coming next week. Our theme of On a Mission for Kids. In Geneva 304, we've got a fun opening day planned. As you know, I roped all of you guys into some shenanigans on our retreat for that. And a lot of staff have contributed to some things, and it's going to be a great opening day, I think, next Monday morning at the Arcada Theater in St. Charles. And then great few days of learning and professional development for staff before kids come next Thursday. So really excited for that. And that's all I got.
Well, thank you very much. The next item is board action on resolution to adopt e-learning plan. So we just heard about it, seen the demonstration. George Petmesses has told us about it. Are there any last minute questions? And if not, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next item, board action on proposed textbook resource adoption. Contained in the packet is information from Superintendent Petmesses regarding textbook instructional materials being proposed for adoption. Any questions?
Dumb question.
No such thing, sir.
When I look, I'm just guessing, I'm hoping that the two textbooks that are up there aren't in 3-ring binders, right? They're regular hardcover textbooks, right? Are they in 3-ring binders?
They are in 3-ring binders, yes. They actually don't make those in textbooks. The resources are all platform based now, but we did ask Waubonsee College for a paper copy, and they are available via 3-ring binder. So that's what we went with to actually have materials in students' hands.
So kids will have access to the whole resource online,
Digitally, right.
online.
Okay.
But we also felt it would be important to have an actual hard copy.
Okay.
So
they'll be issued 3-ring binders, or will they just get the digital copy?
I think
they'll be issued 3-ring binders.
Okay.
That's right. Well, they'll have those in the classroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
right. We wanted to have those if any student needed the actual hard copy, and they don't make it in a hard copy. So everyone will have the electronic version of it.
Sure.
But
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because I asked the same thing when I saw it on table. I was like, George, are these really 3-ring binders? Like,
I'm glad you asked too.
It is a fair point to note that at the college level, there might not be textbooks available. So like getting our learners used to that digital copy is also important.
Well, one of the first questions I asked was who's going to hole punch all of these. binders. So I was happy to hear that they come prepared.
good thing George has 5 kids. This one he's making them do at home.
Put them to work.
Summer project.
All right, well, that is a good question, and dual credit courses sometimes have interesting side effects, but in any case, with no further questions, I'd look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Item 3, board action on a resolution for the issue of not to exceed $22 million of general obligation refunding school bonds, series number 2026B, for the purpose of refunding and outstanding bonds for the district, providing for the levy of the district annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the proposed sale of said bonds to the purchaser thereof. So I bet you're going to tell us something about this.
Yeah, so you'll recall that I've got our timeline up here. We've shared this several times. We talked about this at our board meeting. Technically, our board meeting May 16th last year, where we talked about refinancing our Series 2017 bonds and looked at the financing schedule. And we had the goal of targeting this meeting today, August 10th, with approving these parameters. So Delina Welcomer, right? I said that right?
You did great.
Yes, Delina Welcomer from Raymond James is here to talk through the resolution a little bit. I wanted to highlight, just kind of, as I always try to do, kind of in layman's terms, to remind the public that so what we're doing here is basically, it's like refinancing your mortgage. So we have a certain amount of debt out there that we pay an annual payment on, and that debt can only be refunded or refinanced at certain times. And this debt is coming due kind of right now as an opportunity, a time that we could refinance that debt to a little bit of savings to the taxpayer. And so that's what we're here to do. And what we need from the board today to do all of that is for you to approve parameters. So you would basically give Todd and I the authority to go work with Delina and everybody at Raymond James to do all these steps, renew the bond rating, do all this stuff, and then get that debt refinanced again to a little bit of savings to the taxpayers. So that's kind of how I would describe it at my house, and I'll let you do the smart person version.
Well, you did it very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the document we have before you is a parameters resolution that sets forth, as Dr. Barrett mentioned, delegated officials that have the authority to sell the bonds at a future date without further board action. And within that resolution, there are a number of parameters set forth that have to be met in order for them to have the authority to bind the district. And those, I would point out a few of the major parameters. One being a not to exceed par amount of $22 million. Use of proceeds is solely for the refinancing of the outstanding Series 2017 bonds. Max annual debt service, which is prior bond debt service. We're keeping the same terms as the prior bond issue. And the other key one is a minimum savings threshold. And in our industry, we look at present value savings as a percent of the par amount being refunded. So that threshold is 2.5%. And I know savings was shared with the board previously, but based on current market conditions, we are currently estimating gross debt service savings of about $650,000. Present value savings of about $590,000, or percent PV savings of 2.86%. So currently, we are above all of those parameters. We're also amortizing the refinancing with an accelerated amortization. So that means that the next few years, your annual debt service is essentially no different, but you're going to capture the savings at the end, and capturing more savings than if you were to be amortizing the bonds more on mirroring your current payment pattern. So the goal is to capture all the savings at the end to provide some capacity for potentially some additional debt financing in the future. As Dr. Barrett mentioned, really next steps is going for a bond rating, targeting the end of August for that, selling the bonds in early September, and closing in early October. As he mentioned, based on tax law, the 2017 bonds have a call date of January 1, 2028, and the earliest you can refinance those at tax exempt rates is early October. So we're targeting right around the earliest time frame the district could pursue this refinancing. So with that, I'll open up to any questions.
Yeah, could I add one point that you mentioned, but I wanted to be explicit about because I forgot to mention that. When you mentioned the same terms, I think it's important for the public to know we're talking about, again, if I use the comparison of my house, refinancing, but we aren't extending this debt out longer than we would have paid. We're only refinancing basically to get that lower rate so that basically our payment is lower for that same amount of time we already would have had that debt. I know a lot of times when you think about the example at your house, folks might refinance. They might have 25 years left on their mortgage, and then they're going to go back and get a new 30-year. That's not what we're doing here. For the same exact number of years we were going to go out already, this is just reducing the rate for that same amount of time. Did I say that correctly?
You did, and
Okay.
in fact, by accelerating the amortization, you're really shortening the weighted average life of that
Right.
bond issue too.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone have questions? Dan?
Just real quick on the October, November, December, I'm guessing you're using monthly rates when it comes to trying to find the best rate in terms of, and I was just curious on, is there some magic in October versus November versus December if we had that the last 3 months of the year, calendar year?
Yeah, so the market is going to continue to fluctuate on a daily
Right.
basis. A lot of geopolitical events is driving our market right now. So it's really hard to say that November would be better than October. But one of the key benefits of having a parameters resolution is the district or the delegates have the flexibility with Raymond James guidance to make a decision on when it is the best time to enter the market. So we're shooting for a September sale and an October closing, but if the market is not right, we have it. This is not to say that
Then you don't have to come back
this
to us,
timeline
okay.
is set in stone.
Okay.
This parameters resolution just gives Dr. Barrett and Todd the authority to make a decision on when is the right time, and we would be giving that guidance.
Okay, great, thanks.
Anyone else? I'll read the resolution. Resolution providing for the issue of not to exceed $22 million general obligation refunding school bonds, Series 2026B, for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding bonds of the district, providing for the levy of the district annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds, and authorizing the proposed sale of said bonds to the purchasers thereof. So, with that having been read, I'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. We have work study topics for future action consideration, no items there. Item 9, information for the board meeting presentation schedule and FOIA requests. These are for information. Discussion is not required. Item 10 on the agenda, the consent agenda. As you know, it's one of my favorites. Item 1.
Short one today, Larry. This one's not too bad.
No, this is actually pretty nice. I'll have to agree. Item 1 is the personnel report, resignations, retirements, leave requests, changes in assignment, full-time equivalent, new hires. Item 2, disposition of verbatim record of closed meetings of January 2024 through December of 2024. Item 3, gifts, grants, and bequests, $4,500 from Ken's Auto Center. Thank you, Ken. Item $1,500 from the State Bank of Geneva. Thank you. $1,500 from Fagan's Law Group. Thank you all. $1,500 for GHS athletic team supplies and uniform purchase needs. Item 4, gift grants and bequests, $10,000 from Heartland Elementary School PTO for playground equipment. And thank you to the PTO.
Very generous.
Approval is recommended.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next item is board member comments and reports. We'll start with Dan.
Yeah, one second here, let me bring up my notes. All right, so, I think, Dr. Barrett was mentioning about wanting to get some feedback in regard to the retreat. And so, first of all, thanks to dragging us around, Dr. Barrett, in the bus, and Brian for showing us around. I thought, obviously, we knew that there was a lot of need around the buildings that we saw, and so was good to see that and get eyes on some of those capital projects that are out there. But also, it was good to see some of the progress when it comes to the summer project that we had there. I think that was really neat to see that as well. So kind of a dual purpose in my mind in terms of the retreat, just not only seeing some of the needs that we have, facility needs we have around the district, but also some of the work that has been done that was going on at that time. But as we heard tonight, that's complete, so that's awesome. And then the parent view is the other thing that I had on here, and yeah, definitely and I'm sure some other parents as well had a few issues when logging on, especially on the app side. It was a little interesting. There was a few things that there were some glitches that Mike helped me out in terms of trying to figure out. So, but could tell that it's a powerful tool and really user friendly. So, yeah, looking forward to utilizing it more and kind of plunking around and learning a little bit more about it. But yeah, so far so good in regard to that. Looking forward to the start of the year and opening day next week, and so looking forward to all that.
Molly.
I just want to say I think meetings like today remind me of all the work that gets done behind the scenes. Talking about the capital projects over the summer, Mike Wilkes and his team for the synergy, system, the changeover. George, you and your team with the textbook adoptions. Todd, you and your team, and being fiscally, responsible or financially responsible with everything that we do as far as budget and for our taxpayers. So I just want to say a big thank you across the board to everyone involved in all of those efforts. It affects not only our students, our teachers, our buildings, but our community. So a big thank you, and just enjoy the rest of the summer, and excited to kick off the school year.
Paul.
Yeah, again, I would also say that I'm excited to kick off the school year. Looking forward to coming to the Arcadia to always enjoy that event, and it's nice to see all the teachers and their excitement, and I know that leads a lot with the kids too. We did have our facilities task force meeting today, and it was a very interesting meeting. The first thing is Brian gave us a list of all the projects, and there was probably 15 to 20 projects. Every one of them had completed. It was nice to see that word used so much, because if we're not, there's a lot of schools around that are struggling to get projects completed before the start of the school year, and that would just be a mess. The other great thing that I saw in talking with Brian today was that there were no major overruns in the projects. So they were well planned, well designed, well implemented, and ready to go. So everything, and you have to realize that we spent probably pretty close to $8 to $9 million over the last 3 months with all the projects that we had going on. So that's pretty amazing that they're able to do that, and that's all because of the pre-planning and having an outside engineering firm management that helps us, and having the architects that helps us. And so I'm warning everybody that we're getting all started that again. You will be seeing those over the next couple months. You're going to see projects come. You're going to see opportunities for ordering equipment that is long lead time equipment that we have to order probably in October or November in order to have it available for us for the projects next summer. So Brian and his team and all of the outside support that he has, the engineering and the architects are doing a great job there. And yeah, I think you hate to wish time away that the coming year is already done, but for maintenance, the coming year we're already a year ahead. So, and that's where we need to be in order to do this right.
Okay, Stephanie.
So I just wanted to start about policy committee. So we had a meeting earlier today, and you guys will see all those policies come on the agenda for our next meeting. So it was 31 policies, so just that's your little heads up. coming your way. It'll be first reading next meeting, and I'll walk through a couple of the big ones for you all, but most of them are just review, which we find so important because we're not studying these policies every month, every year. So it's a good time to read through the policies and be like, yeah, make sure you familiarize yourself with those again. But of course, bring any questions and I'll highlight some aspects of those policies. I just wanted to thank Dr. Barrett and Brian Peterson for the board retreat about facilities and just share with the public how that kind of came about. We were at our last board retreat going through the facilities assessment and the work that was going to need to be done in the schools. And although we had plenty of pictures to see it, we like kind of started talking and we're like, we would love to be in the buildings to see what our staff and our students are experiencing so we could truly understand this. And that evening was very helpful for me personally and to start having further discussions about what's needing to be done. But I just wanted to share with everyone why we did that and where that came about so that we can be good stewards for the whole community, staff, students, and community members, parents, taxpayers, everybody, as we have to make decisions going forward. And then the last thing was parent view. So I know that there were some hiccups, and I think about when I update my phone to the newest iPhone version, and I like hate my phone for a while, and then you get used to it, and you're like, how did I ever live any other way? And then imagine if you went from like an iPhone to an Android. I don't think I could do it, honestly. So starting a new system is a big deal, and it comes with a lot of new learning. So if everyone can just have a little patience as we go through that, I'm glad that we're being strategic because there are more things. You might look at it and say, we're not getting anything really great or different from this new system, but they will be coming. We're just trying to get everyone up to speed. And I did like to see, like I personally never got the email for access. And then the next day I got a text saying, if you didn't get access, here's what you're gonna do. Click this link. In 2 minutes I had access. So I think like we were trying to respond quickly to any bugs that did come up, and we're going to keep doing that, I know, because that's what that team does. So thank you for all the work that went into that. And I know now our building secretaries, our building administrators are still working really hard because the schedules are going through that system and they're still trying to learn something new. So just have some patience with them too. And thank you to all of them. But that's all I have.
Okay, Willard?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you again to all those who have been working behind the scenes. Looking forward to the beginning of the school year, and more importantly, as we begin to think about what we have said, I think collectively of being, I'm going to use a little, maybe a term from physics, but a little bit ahead of the power curve. I think that momentum is going to carry us, do us well as we try to make ourselves, just do the appropriate here, make ourselves at home with some of these decisions with our theme coming up next Monday. I'm looking forward to that as well. I've got a little bit more extra time now, so I'm looking forward to going to that opening day. I'd like to also say that I want to thank the collectively financial team and Raymond James' presentation. I think it's important, even if it's in layperson's terms, that we're bringing more savings back to the taxpayers. I think that's important for them to hear, that we're not only being good stewards, but also doing things appropriate to give them hope that as we move forward into our strategic plan, that it's worth their while to be on board with that. So I think that's a good thing that we should say, or at least make it clear publicly, transparently. So that was a good thing. I think that it's important that as we consider being ahead of the power curve, especially with the legislative action and the governor sign up on the ban of devices, it's all about, you know, having a vision of what you can do with that. And I think that as children, we may take a stick. They may take a stick and look at it as imagine it doing something with it as a toy, but also they can, as they grow, they begin to realize they can do something instrumental and make it a tool. So I think as we go through these transitions, I hope that at the end of the school day, as we envision this new way of looking at things, that there's not a mad rush to go back to that and then lose sight of homework and things like that. So I look forward to seeing how that evolves as a collective team supporting the superintendent and the rest of the team as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Jackie?
Yeah, I do want to congratulate the IT team and everybody else who's been working on the parent view system. to get something out earlier than expected is not always the case when it comes to those types of programs, having been in that industry. And I know they spent a lot of hours, a lot of years working to get to that point, and I agree it's better to just wait on the different modules until we all get a little bit comfortable. I like your analogy, Stephanie, of how to just get used to it, and before you know it, it will just be second nature to get through it. It's always little bumps in the road, but for them to feel like it was ready to launch when it did is a good sign. So happy to hear about that, and congrats to that group. I wanted to mention a couple things that I got to attend. I went to the Young Entrepreneur event that was held. I'm not sure exactly who sponsored it, but it was held on a Saturday in Geneva. And Dan, I don't know if the DECA kids were involved in that, but it was unfortunately a rainy and windy Saturday after we had had a drought. But I can tell you that the enthusiasm that all these students had and the things that they had made, it's everything from lemonade stands and baked goods to 3D printing, fidget tools. I am wearing a necklace that I proudly purchased from a group of cousins, they were called, who get together and make these things. Lots of jewelry, some beautiful wild flowers pressed in glass. I mean, it was unbelievable, all the different things. And part of that, they all had their pitches too. So you would walk around and talk to them, and they had a pitch, similar to a lot of the stores today who have the mystery boxes. Some of them have raffled off mystery boxes. You don't know what's inside, but you can get a raffle ticket for it. So it really was amazing. I think the weather unfortunately made it challenging. Congrats to all the family members who literally had to hold the tents because they would have blown away because they were in the parking lot and couldn't really anchor them. But that was a fun event. So I'm hoping that maybe next year we'll be able to let folks know about that a little bit more, and more people will come. I was told that the year before there were more people who attended. I also got to go to the National Night Out event that was held. We hosted it at South, and it was wonderful to see all the different partners that we have who were there, all the different supporting agencies that were there, just to meet the families who walked through. They had lots of events and things for the kids to do, lots of giveaways. The Park District had a really nice setup for kids to do different sports. So it was a nice night. It was a little warm that day, but we can't have perfect weather, okay? So that was fun to be able to attend that. I think anything else? Thanks to our donors this year. Again, so it's so wonderful to see all the different local businesses who donate to the school different ways. Our PTO and another group that's providing some playground equipment. It's wonderful to see. So thank you to all of them for doing that. And good luck to everybody at the beginning of the school year. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jackie. I don't know, standing around holding the pole so the tent doesn't blow away, that might have been a more exciting evening than you anticipated.
Yeah, a couple launched, and it was, I thanked everybody who was standing there holding those things because it was windy, but it was worth going.
Nice work. I want to just emphasize a couple things that people said because I'm somewhat duplicating otherwise. But I would like to say that the administration of the construction and various construction projects throughout the district has been a remarkable improvement in my years on the board. Until at this point, we have a really well-run system that ensures that taxpayers are getting bang for their buck, the jobs are getting done on time and done well. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate all that everybody puts into that. And just a little side thing, you might not think about IT and all of the large buildings that are being built. All of those buildings need cooling units on the top, and the wait time for a cooling unit, which also works for a school, has gone from less than a year to nearly 4. And that amount of wait time is a real problem, but we have the systems in place to manage it, knowing what our needs are. So again, my hat's off. That's really about it for my comments. Thank you all for yours. I agree with everything everybody said. There are no notices or announcements. So the next thing is executive session, and I will read the reason. Executive session to consider matters pertaining to the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body, discussions of minutes, meetings lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act, whether for purposes of approval by the body of minutes or semi-annual review of minutes as mandated by the section of the Illinois School Code. So we'll be going into executive session. First, we have to have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. So we will pause for a moment if anybody needs a brief break.